Welcome to the Expanding Worlds podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Caldo. And welcome to a new series on technology changing the future. This is a series I've been wanting to do for a while because as my daughter has gotten older, we've looked at ways to support her to do more for herself, to prepare for when we're not around to support her. And technology has played a big role in doing that. My daughter's grown up with technology, so if I'm honest, the learning curve has often been steeper for me than it has for her. But I suppose the big question is what we mean by technology. For me, it's anything that makes her life better and enables her to do more for herself. What the right technology can provide is inclusion and reduce the barriers that she faces. In our house, an air fryer has made it easier for her to cook. An iron that cuts off automatically has made it easier for her to get her uniform sorted for work. A bus timetable app has made it easier for her to meet up with friends. And a banking app helps her track how much she spends. All these little things are adding up for her, helping her live the life she wants. But of course, there are bigger issues here around technology, about access, digital inclusion, and affordability, which are all topics covered in the series. I truly believe that advances in technology will make her life easier in all the areas that matter: daily living, relationships, work, and financial security. And in this first episode of the series, where I'm talking to Libby Wilkins from the Oaks Specialist College, it's an ideal starting point because you'll hear how they're using technology in various ways to support young people in terms of day-to-day living, but also around work. And once you've listened to Libby, you won't be surprised to hear that she recently won the Microsoft Innovative Inspiration Award for the UK, and that the Oaks is a Microsoft Showcase College, one of the few specialist schools to achieve this. I'm a massive fan of the Oaks, and in particular how they're using technology to support our young people to build skills they will use for the rest of their lives, and which promote genuine inclusion. So let's hear from Libby exactly how that all works. Thank you very much, Libby, for talking to me today. Can we start off by you just explaining a little bit about your own background and then also a little bit about what you do actually at the Oaks Specialist College?
I've taught for 20 years. 15 of those were in mainstream education before I then moved over to the specialist sector. And at the Oaks Specialist College, I am the head of accessibility and digital applications, which just means that I get to work with our young people and our job coaches to be able to actually make the world more accessible and be able to mean that actually some of our young people who historically would have had blockers in their way are able to actually access the world and job settings in a far more age-appropriate manner.
So if I was to say to you, for someone that comes into the college, what is the first step in that process of supporting them in terms of the technology that they might need? How do you do that?
So before somebody comes into the college, once we've received consultation and a place has been offered, we'll send out, with the admissions packs, we will send out our policies for digital, and that includes actually encouraging young people to bring in their own devices that they have currently, because to teach a young person with additional needs to use a college device seems completely counterproductive. What we want is for our young people to be able to use the devices that they have at home so that they can use those beyond the context of the college.
So that seems to be one of those things where people would say, well, you can't have tech in school, using your phone in class. How does that work then?
We actively encourage using your phone in class because most of us will use our phones to do a lot of everyday tasks. Just this morning, my phone woke me up. The sat-nav made me avoid the lane closure on the A21 so that I could actually get to work faster. I was able to check my emails. I spoke to my mother on the way to work. So just before I got to work, I'd used my phone in 4 or 5 different ways. And that's what we encourage our young people to do because we want them to live as independent lives as possible within the real world.
How do you think that then goes against people will say, well, I don't want my child to be on tech all the time?
And I think that's a really fair point. And so actually this forms part of our curriculum. This is about making a young person understand all of the different ways that they can be independent. So a lot of our young people will have a mobile phone that doesn't have a SIM card in it and that connects to home Wi-Fi and connects to college Wi-Fi, but doesn't have those unrestricted elements so that we can actually make sure that young people are safe when they're utilising tech. We don't see a huge amount of social media use in college. We address e-safety. We do a lot of work to encourage safe use and safeguarding when using social media. And I think we're always really scared about safeguarding our children, but banning something in the history of safeguarding, banning has never worked. And I think the same is true with young adults with additional needs, because if we turn around and say, no, you can't do that, you couldn't be safe, we will actually make our young people less safe. If we filter everything to within an inch of their life, we will make them less safe as soon as those filters are removed. So being able to actually try out, fail, learn from with tech in a safe environment is really, really important. And I think that's why what we do is so important, because that technology is not going anywhere. So whether families, businesses are scared of that technology will still be used by those young people. And so we should make sure that that technology is used in a safe and effective manner, and then harness the positives. There are so many positives about using technology, but the focus that we have is on using apps that actually will enhance the lives of our young people. For example, learning how to use a QR code reader so that bus stops all have QR codes at the bus stops rather than traditional timetables. And so being able to use a QR code reader to make sure that you can get to work on time. Those elements, those functional parts are the bits that we focus on.
Can you give me some other examples then of specific apps that you can think of that are really useful for young people?
One of the key ones that we use is Microsoft Lens. It's an app that is used by a lot of people as a pocket scanner. So you can take photographs and turn it into a PDF very quickly. And I used that during homeschool with my own children to send work back to their school. However, you can also use it to read text within the environment. So we use it, one as a QR code scanner, but also for the immersive reader function. So a young person can take a photograph of any piece of text, handwritten or typed, and it will then read that back to that young person, and they can adjust the speed of that, they can adjust the voice, the tone, to make it so that they can understand that far better. And real world applications of that are the fact that we have a young man now who has just started a placement as a porter in a hospital. He can't read, he uses Office Lens to be able to read the signs in the hospital to get from one place to another. So we look at very practical applications of pieces of technology.
So just moving on from that, we're sort of talking about the education side, but actually you're now saying that as well you've got the independent side and the work side. What are some of the sort of, I guess, applications in terms of building independent skills?
From the point of view of being independent, we focus a lot on alarms and reminders within phones. I certainly need them myself to be independent, but that's a really, really useful function. And currently we are sat in the life skills flat where we have an Alexa, we have a smart TV, smart fridge. And so we look at the applications of tech from a very modern perspective with regards to elements that people might need to use when they leave college. And from the day that a young person comes into the college, we're looking at the day that they've gone. All of our tech that we use is able to be bought on the high street. So we don't buy into systems that are managed by large companies, because our main focus is making sure that we engender that independence when young people leave. So everything needs to be something that realistically may be part of their life when they're no longer with us.
So do you think that's also important to make any technology that we help our young people to learn, make it sure it's accessible in terms of not only being able to use it, but also in cost and being able to purchase it?
Yeah, totally. I think the context of each young person is essential when you're looking at their digital education, looking at the devices that they already own, but also the devices that might be in their future. Very few of our young people will work in an office typing on a laptop, and therefore actually using a laptop may not be the most appropriate piece of technology for that young person. It may well be a mobile phone, and the devices that we use with those young people often rely on the high street elements of tech, because within their future they are most likely to be able to afford those accessible elements of society.
Do you think then that's the issue that we have as we're still educating? We're not talking about education on this particular episode, we're talking about tech and accessibility, but do you think the education system is still in the past when it comes to the reality of using technology, which is why we come back to that point of saying, I don't want you to use your phone in the classroom?
I think there's definitely an element of that. It surprised me that what we are doing at the college is seen as something that is not a commonality within people's educational experience. For us, it makes complete sense to look at the whole person, to look at what allows them to develop individually in their own personalised way. And the young people coming through the education system now are digital natives. They have grown up with technology. Whilst we remember a time when we didn't have a phone and we didn't use technology for everyday tasks, the majority of our young people have done so, and all of them have grown up within a time when that is a commonality. And as a result, we need to make sure that what we are teaching these young people, if it is to have an impact away from the education setting, then we need to be reflecting their lives outside of there.
You mentioned the young man who is using the Microsoft Lens to support him at work. Is there other examples that you can think of sort of outside situations, not necessarily education-based, but outside where young people have been able to have that independence because of this technology that's already out there, readily available?
So 3 weeks ago, we had a young man attend a job interview with one of our job coaches, and within the interview, it became quite apparent that he needed to be able to read to have that job, and he had to declare that he can't read. And with guidance from his job coach, he advocated for himself, and he said, would I be able to bring my phone to work? And the ladies conducting the interview looked a bit perplexed, and he was able to show them how he uses his phone to read, and he got the job. And that's a long-term real-world impact for that young man that has changed his employability prospects. And that's a job that he chose from a job website that he wanted to go to. It's not any job that he could fulfill. This is the job that he wants to do. And so his understanding of that technology has enabled him to do that.
And I'm assuming as well they've learned something about supporting someone who has that specific need that he has.
So whilst he goes through his training over the next few weeks, our job coach is going there to train the staff as well alongside to make sure that they understand the technology that allows him to do his job. And our hope one day is that actually accessible technology will be technology in general that is used by people, and that if a young person in an interview says they can't read, the interviewers would automatically know, well, you could bring your phone and you could do this. And it's about making sure that actually society as a whole understands the features that are freely available on these pieces of technology that actually open the world up to everybody and open employers up to better employees.
It's not the actual technology that's not accessible, it's being allowed to use it.
I think technology's developed so quickly, and accessibility features within technology are vast now, but they're not necessarily publicised fully in the way that allows the average person to understand that this might be something that opens up the world to another person. Very often we use voice notes, and we don't think that that might be an accessibility feature. A lot of young people these days who don't need to use the closed captions or subtitles on films. And these are all accessibility features that actually are now becoming far more mainstream. And the more that that happens, the more that that develops and they're adopted. Actually, my hope for the future is the fact that employers, members of society in general, will simply think of these as features, and therefore actually as things develop further, the world will become more accessible, but only if we teach these young people how to use these features.
Why do you think we don't know about all these features though?
I think there's been a huge amount of development very recently. I think things have moved at an incredible pace, and I think that people are becoming more aware of accessibility features and the need for accessibility features. 1 in 5 people in the UK has a disability of some kind, and actually that's 20% of your potential workforce. So there's a huge reason for businesses to learn about these things, and legislation is gradually coming in to encourage people to do so. I would hope that it doesn't take legislation for people to do so, but the fact that this is now the agenda is now far more positive towards accessibility, and people are understanding the positive implications of people with various disabilities actually playing an equal part within society. And I think as those societal views change, we will see more adoption of those views.
And more people understanding that the tech is there to help rather than to hinder. I still think there'll be a pushback from some employers that don't want their employees to have a phone.
Totally.
Because their perception will be that the phone would be used in a negative way rather than a positive way.
And my response to that would always be that that is a behavioural issue. Any negative behaviour is not necessarily the result of technology. The technology itself can be used in a positive or negative manner, and the adoption of those positive views is really important.
Can we talk a little bit about the smart flat that we're actually sitting in and some of the tech that's in here and how you see that moving forward in terms of helping young people become more independent?
Yeah, so our smart flat's quite a new addition to the college, and we're in phase 1 of it at the moment. So we have our Alexa that controls our lights, and we are currently developing learners' ability to set routines within an Alexa with different elements that work for them to be able to read what's happening for that young person that day. So it may be that their friends are coming for lunch, and it actually being able to let a young person know when they've woken up that this is what is happening for their day. We also have our smart fridge, where we can look at the food that actually is available and cross-reference that with the Alexa for your recipe, so that you can add what you need into your shopping list, so that that can be delivered. Looking at shopping online, because shopping within a shop can be quite overwhelming for some people. So those are some of the sort of interactive elements that we have at the moment with the flat. We have a smart TV as well, which learners are moving on to understanding more than simply to self-direct one program that they might like, but actually being able to find information out using that as well. And a smart doorbell, so looking at actually young people being able to keep themselves safe and knowing who is at their door, who are they opening their door to, and understanding how to actually check elements like that. And then we'll move on to phase 2 in the near future, which includes being able to use the smart washing machine, the robotic vacuum cleaner, to be able to actually be more independent with regards to household tasks as well.
Do you see that as a long-term thing, that that's how all of our houses will look?
I think a lot of people's houses already are starting to look like that. And that doesn't show any sign of stopping. As technology develops and makes life easier, and as life becomes more time sensitive, people will adopt more things that make their life easier. It's human nature. We have done that throughout history. We make tasks easier to achieve. We use those methods to do so. So certainly within the lifetime of our young people that we're seeing at the age of 20 here, within the next 60 years, houses are going to look very, very different from how they look now.
And they'll be at the forefront of understanding that.
That's our hope, is that actually they will be able to be as independent as possible utilising these pieces of technology, but also they will be receptive to new technology throughout their lives, because it is their understanding that they develop knowledge and they are lifelong learners in that way.
Do you think in terms of accessibility that often, because as you said before, our children have grown up with tech, that the young people that you have in this college that have additional needs see themselves as like everyone else when it comes to tech? Tech is something that everybody can access. Thinking about my own daughter, a lot of the things that she does, like use Siri, just come naturally to her and is what everyone her age would do. So it's almost a level playing field.
Yeah, technology is an incredible leveller, and if you are walking down the road with your mobile phone and your headphones on, you look like every other 20-something. Nobody needs to know the fact that actually you're using your phone to read the bus timetable to you, because you've got your headphones on, so no one can even hear that that's happening. And a lot of our young people want to be the same as everybody else, whatever their perception of the same as everybody else is. And so being able to use everyday tech rather than specialist tech is really important, because it doesn't single you out. It allows you to interact with other young people as well who are of your age but maybe have a different ability from you. And being able to do that, I think, is incredibly important.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for listening. I hope this gave you some insights about the technology that's already around us. Maybe that we don't know about or we're not using, but how it can really be useful in terms of supporting our young people. In the next episode of this series, I'll be talking to an organisation who provide assistive technology, and again, talking about the direct impact this has on people's lives. I'd love to hear your feedback, especially if you have a young person who's using a particular technology in a particular way, because we always learn more by sharing how we do things and learning from each other. You can get in touch with me on email, deborah@expandingworlds.com, or you can send me a message. You can find me online at Deborah Caldo.